Picture a bright California sun blazing down on North Hollywood, with young dreamers pounding the pavement, hoping for that elusive big break. Among them was Johnny Lewis, a kid with a head full of ambition and a unique spark in his eyes. Johnny Lewis grew up in Los Angeles, splitting his childhood between North Hollywood and Sherman Oaks, places that hold a unique energy for those raised under the perpetual glimmer of entertainment. He was the middle child of Michael and Devona Lewis, both devout followers of Scientology. Those close to him would say that Johnny's upbringing reflected the typical LA kid vibe, skateboard culture, auditions, and the swirl of social connections that can shape a teen's sense of self. Yet he also carried a profound spiritual component, courtesy of his parents' belief system. By all accounts, he wasn't forced into it. His father and mother simply lived the Scientology path, eventually reaching operating Thetan Level 8, the highest rung in that organization's spiritual ladder. As for Johnny, he embraced it for much of his youth, though he would later make choices that took him down a separate road altogether. If one single drive seems to anchor many budding actors in Southern California, it's the desire to make it big in Hollywood. And Johnny, after finishing high school, felt it. At 18, he left the comfortable nest of his family's home to pursue an acting career, following that strong undercurrent that tugs at so many kids in Los Angeles. Right away, he started booking small TV roles. The early 2000s were flush with procedural dramas and teen-oriented series, so you can find a young Johnny Lewis making appearances on shows like Boston Public, The Guardian, and American Dreams. He was in his late teens, fresh-faced and eager. Even in these early guest spots, he had a certain presence, charismatic, but in a subtle, understated way that never felt forced. Soon enough, film opportunities came knocking. He made his feature film debut in 2004 with Raise Your Voice for New Line Cinema. It was the kind of youth-centric musical drama that cast Hilary Duff as its star attraction. While the production garnered mixed reviews, for Johnny it was a perfect launching pad, a place to carve out a foothold in the cinematic world. Around the same time, he secured a role in Underclassmen, a Miramax Films release from 2005. While neither movie was exactly an award magnet, it didn't matter. He was collecting those small but critical puzzle pieces that an actor uses to build a career. Movie credits, TV guest spots, proximity to bigger names, growing familiarity with the casting directors who might remember him for future projects. Meanwhile, the versatile realm of television continued to beckon. Johnny's comedic chops got a spotlight on the Fox sitcom Quintuplets, where he co-starred as Pierce Chase, one of 5 siblings in a delightfully chaotic family setup. His comedic timing there helped him stand out among the ensemble. Around that same period, he guest starred in 4 episodes of Nickelodeon's Drake and Josh. If you're a millennial or Gen Z who tuned into Nickelodeon, you might recall the character Scotty, one of Drake's bandmates, a minor part, but memorable for the way Johnny could pull off the chill SoCal vibe. Over at Fox's hit teen soap The O.C., he portrayed Dennis Chili Childress from 2005 to 2006, adding another youthful storyline to his roster. In a short stint on Smallville, he even brushed shoulders with the DC Comics universe, guesting in the show's 5th season. By the time he reached his early 20s, Johnny had a TV and film resume that many aspiring actors would envy. He also started to cultivate a certain scene cred. He was part of that circle of up-and-coming entertainers hustling between auditions and gigs, forging connections that might shape the next chapter of his path. For a while, those connections included the pop star Katy Perry, whom he dated from 2005 to 2006, an era when Perry was finding her own foothold in the music industry. If you scrolled through early social media or tabloid columns back then, you might stumble upon a photo or two of them together, a snapshot of that ephemeral teenage romance under the bright city lights. Still, personal relationships can get complicated. After his relationship with Perry ended, Johnny began dating actress Diane Gaeta. They learned in mid-2009 that they were expecting a child, and for a time, it looked like Johnny might merge fatherhood with the forward momentum of his career. Yet by the time their daughter, Culla May, was born on April 6, 2010, the relationship was on precarious ground. They briefly tried living together but soon parted ways, setting the stage for a difficult custody battle that consumed them both. This was the kind of struggle that often underscores the complications of mixing young fame, personal demons, and new responsibilities. It's never easy. And for Johnny, the heartbreak of losing custody combined with other life stressors appears to have initiated a darker spiral. Meanwhile, as he navigated personal drama, he took on what would become the defining role of his career, Kip Halfsack Epps on FX's Sons of Anarchy. If you've seen the series, you'll recall the rough-and-tumble portrayal of outlaw bikers in a Northern California club. Johnny's character was a prospect, a man on the outside trying to earn respect and navigate the complexities of a violent, insular group. The show's gritty atmosphere gave him a chance to display a deeper acting range than his more teen-centric roles allowed. He was no longer just the comedic or slightly awkward presence in a high school storyline. Suddenly, he was immersed in the rawness of a drama that tackled loyalty, family, and crime. Though his character died in the second season, some fans still talk about how unexpected that storyline twist was. Johnny's performance was widely praised, elevating him to a new level of industry recognition. Around 2011, he starred in the film Magic Valley, which premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. Though not as high profile as a major studio blockbuster, it was the kind of character-driven piece that resonates with film festival audiences. You could sense the artistry in his performance, hinting at what might come next for his career. But behind the scenes, Johnny was contending with a host of mental, emotional, and personal issues. Bits of trouble began to surface publicly, overshadowing his talents. The first signs were subtle. He had grown up within the Church of Scientology, even starring in some of their training videos and endorsing Narconon, the group's rehab program. Over the years, Johnny had begun questioning this environment and eventually left Scientology in his early 20s. The official reasons for his departure remain somewhat vague, but it's apparent that the break caused a major philosophical shift. Some might say he lost a sense of spiritual grounding. Others suggest he simply evolved in a different direction. Either way, that bedrock he'd known all his life had crumbled. Changing your entire belief system, especially in your 20s, is no trivial matter. It can influence the way you see yourself, your relationships, and the world. And that world, for Johnny, was about to become far more difficult. Between 2011 and 2012, he was arrested 3 times. One incident was a bottle-smashing assault in which he struck 2 men in the head. This resulted in a no-contest plea to assault with a deadly weapon. Another arrest involved an attempt to break into a woman's home. Prosecutors and probation officers started to paint a grim picture of someone who was on a dangerous track, plagued by mental health problems and substance abuse. The specific details vary. Some say he was struggling with marijuana. Others mention potential alcohol issues. But the broader storyline was clear. The once promising actor was unraveling. The system, for its part, tried to intervene. Reports from the time describe probation officials voicing dire concerns about his well-being and that of the community. They spoke of someone who was likely to continue exhibiting violent behavior if not properly treated. As these legal dramas unfolded, Johnny's life took another devastating turn. On October 30th, 2011, he suffered serious head injuries from a high-speed motorcycle accident. Family members later noted that doctors advised an MRI, suspecting that a concussion or something more serious might have occurred. But Johnny refused those scans. His father tried scheduling them twice to no avail. Instead, Johnny's behavior grew increasingly erratic. By some accounts, he was disoriented, paranoid, and occasionally violent, veering into outbursts that mystified those who knew him best. It's not an unfamiliar narrative. An individual with a predisposition for mental health challenges might spiral after a head injury, especially if they're mixing in substance use or refusing recommended treatments. Despite these red flags, the court system's attempts to provide help were messy. At one point, his family and attorneys attempted to secure rehabilitative services, first attributing his issues to marijuana, then pivoting to a supposed alcohol problem when the first approach was rejected. He ended up spending time in jail, eventually being released on September 21st, 2012. 5 days later, only 5 days after stepping out of jail, events took a horrifying turn. On September 26, 2012, Johnny Lewis and his 81-year-old landlady, Catherine Davis, were both found dead at her Los Angeles residence. Catherine was no ordinary landlord. She was well known in certain Hollywood circles for running the Writers' Villa, a welcoming haven for creatives, up-and-coming actors, playwrights, and directors. She provided them with a nurturing environment where they could focus on their craft. Johnny had lived there previously in 2009 and had recently returned. Whether he saw it as a calm place to reset or just an affordable room while he got back on his feet, we'll never know. The details that emerged from the crime scene painted a deeply disturbing picture. Neighbors recounted hearing violent screams and witnessing Johnny attacking two people at the adjacent property. He jumped fences, assaulted individuals, then returned to Catherine Davis's home. When police arrived, they found Johnny's body in the driveway, having apparently fallen or jumped from a rooftop, garage, or patio. Catherine, unfortunately, was found inside with severe head trauma. She had been strangled and beaten. Even her cat had been killed in the melee. Investigators initially labeled the situation a homicide, which it was. Johnny had taken Davis's life. The precise circumstances of his own death were more ambiguous. The evidence eventually ruled out homicide or suicide for Johnny. The official cause was accidental death. Perhaps he slipped or became disoriented and fell from the roof. We may never know the exact chain of events, but the finality of it was clear. 2 lives ended that night. After the initial shock, the public demanded to know, was he intoxicated? How could such gruesome violence occur? But the autopsy results were as baffling as they were revealing. No drugs or alcohol were found in his system. He hadn't been taking any antipsychotic medication, nor did he have any trace of common recreational substances like marijuana or cocaine. This sobered everyone to the likelihood that mental illness, possibly exacerbated by the unaddressed head trauma, played a significant role in what happened. Those who followed his unraveling recognized that the root causes could have been complex, a mixture of physical injury, psychological issues, personal stresses, and a cascading series of legal troubles that left him in a state of desperation. This was a tragedy for all involved. Catherine Davis was, by all accounts, a compassionate soul who spent much of her life helping young creatives. She was 81, a grandmotherly figure in the entertainment world who took pride in fostering artistic dreams. Her life being cut short in such a horrendous way left many in the community heartbroken and outraged. Johnny Lewis, the once promising actor, ended up the central villain in that narrative, overshadowing any sympathy some might have felt for his personal struggles. Yet the complexities of mental health remind us that we can condemn the act while also acknowledging the individual was profoundly unwell. Kurt Sutter, the creator of Sons of Anarchy, captured these conflicting emotions in a statement expressing sorrow for the loss of Catherine Davis and acknowledging that Johnny's violent decline was, tragically, something he'd seen coming. In the months and years since his passing, speculation has persisted about whether the head trauma from that motorcycle accident led to a degenerative mental disorder or if other deeper psychological conditions were already present. Some draw parallels to chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, a degenerative brain disease linked to repeated concussions, commonly found in athletes. Yet we'll probably never get a definitive medical conclusion, as no toxicology or autopsy gave a clear diagnosis. All we know is that the MRI never happened, and the final window to truly understand what might have been going on inside his head was missed. For fans of Sons of Anarchy, the memory of Kip Halfsack Epps remains bittersweet. He was the tragic figure on screen, a prospect who didn't survive the club, and ironically, that fictional tragedy preceded a real-life tragedy far more brutal. The difference, of course, is that in real life there's no second take, no alternative script where the character's arc continues or ends more gracefully. Off-screen, the ramifications included a devastated family mourning Catherine Davis, and Johnny's own relatives left grappling with how things could have spiraled so far. His ex-girlfriend, Diane, and their daughter, Culla May, share a heartbreak that can never be undone. And the Hollywood community, forever fixated on redemption stories, is left with no closure, only questions. In interviews, friends recall glimpses of the old Johnny, someone who was quick to laugh, eager to help out on set, and always ready to talk shop about the art of performance. They mention how sharply his personality changed in the final year, how his eyes seemed distant. Some suspect he was hiding intense shame about his arrests and legal issues, or that the mounting stress stoked the embers of a latent psychotic disorder. The consistent theme is heartbreak. When a person's story ends in such violence, we look for reasons, but the messy truth doesn't lend itself to neat explanations. Perhaps the ultimate lesson is about vigilance and compassion, recognizing early signs of mental health decline, acknowledging that a scuffle with the law might sometimes be a cry for help, and avoiding the pitfalls of denial, especially when head injuries are involved. This was someone who, not so long before, was fighting for comedic lines on a family sitcom, who was cast as a lovable sidekick in a teen drama, and who starred in a revered crime series on FX. His life was once a collage of promising auditions, paparazzi snapshots, romance with a budding pop star, and a swirl of possibilities. People who observed him behind the scenes talk about his potential to grow into a powerhouse actor if he had found the right projects and mentorship. And yet it all collapsed into that dreadful final scene on a quiet street in Los Angeles. In the wake of tragedy, we sometimes glean an uncomfortable perspective on fame. The illusions of stardom don't necessarily insulate someone from mental illness or from personal destruction. As you explore Johnny Lewis's story, it's not about worshiping or demonizing him. Instead, it's about grappling with the complicated mosaic of a life cut short and the devastation left behind. In the entertainment industry, we often celebrate redemption arcs, actors who bounce back from scandal or addiction, re-emerging as success stories. That narrative, though, isn't guaranteed. Johnny's story underlines that some paths don't end in redemption, but in heartbreak. And heartbreak is exactly the sentiment that resonates most strongly for Catherine Davis, an octogenarian who spent her twilight years providing a supportive haven for writers and actors. Her death, especially at the hands of someone she once tried to help, is the cruelest irony. If there's any solace, it may lie in the memories shared by those who cherished her, the warm environment she nurtured, the aspirations she helped cultivate, and the quiet legacy of kindness that many in Hollywood still recall. The same goes for the cat that died that night, often overlooked in the story, but a small example of how violence can be indiscriminate and senseless. When Kurt Sutter commented, "I was not shocked," it was a painfully honest reminder that those close to Johnny had recognized the slope he was sliding down. They saw the mental confusion, the brushes with the law, the restlessness that soared beyond normal teenage rebellion or quarter-life crisis. Perhaps no one fully grasped the seriousness of that slope. Hollywood is a place that can both amplify and obscure personal battles. The pressures to maintain an image, to snag the next big role, to prove oneself, can allow severe mental health issues to go unchecked. Even as the spotlight can make or break a career, it often casts shadows where real struggles can fester. Years later, the question remains, how do we remember Johnny Lewis? As the goofy band member from Drake and Josh? The troubled prospect from Sons of Anarchy? The chaotic neighbor who ended an innocent woman's life? Or the lost soul battered by an unacknowledged head injury and mental health crisis? In truth, he was all of these, an amalgam of potential and pain, shaped by environment, biology, and circumstance. If there's any meaningful takeaway for those in the entertainment industry, it's to demand better support systems for mental health and to ensure that those with repeated red flags receive intervention beyond incarceration. And for those outside the industry, it's a stark reminder that no one is immune to the pitfalls of untreated trauma or illness, no matter how bright their star once shined. The storms that swirl through Tinseltown can be relentless, but they also leave us with cautionary tales that might help someone else in crisis. It's not easy to talk about such a brutal story, especially given the natural inclination to want a neat resolution or moral. But real life doesn't always oblige. All we have are the fragments, Johnny's comedic spots, that polished highlight of half-sack Epps in Sons of Anarchy, the short-lived romance with Katy Perry, and the final harrowing act of violence that claimed Catherine Davis's life. It's as though you took a single reel of celluloid film and discovered it ended mid-frame, never to be completed, with the final image a messy blur rather than a tidy fade-out. We can watch, analyze, and reflect, but the film itself remains heartbreakingly incomplete. In concluding this unsettling account, maybe the best we can do is hold in our minds the contradictory truths, that a young man can be talented and dangerous, charming and broken, loved and deeply troubled. Johnny Lewis's story isn't purely about condemnation or pity. It's a testament to the fragility of human potential and to how rapidly bright futures can turn dark. Hollywood might continue to produce entertaining shows, but behind each production credit or cameo could lie someone wrestling with invisible battles. Let this story serve not as a morbid curiosity, but as a prompt for empathy and active intervention whenever warning signs appear. In the end, maybe the lasting image shouldn't be the tragedy in that Los Angeles driveway, but the flicker of a teenage actor fresh out of North Hollywood stepping onto a set for the first time, brimming with hope. That image reminds us of the good that was possible. Then, of course, we have to confront the reality that not all stories end with hope intact. Sometimes they end abruptly, leaving only questions, heartbreak, and a haunting sense of a life's promise undone.